In Indianapolis, 44-year-old Phillip Rivers on retiring and signing with the team's practice squad.
I don't think he knows, hey, I'm going in there, I'm starting Sunday, I'm starting the rest of the year. I think he goes in there, obviously, with the idea that he wants to play, and they're going to need him to play. The question is how soon the clock starts on that.
The Colts are in trouble, and they understand it. They're grasping at all straws. I don't blame them a bit.
Phillip Rivers is coming to help Shane Steichen out, but Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson don't care about that. Yeah. Leonard Williams don't care about that. I'm scared for Phillip Rivers.
Unsportsmanlike is presented by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs for protection on the road and on the water. To see how much you can save, 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Yes, what got us into the entire conversation about my throwing motion is the fact that Phillip Rivers, at 44 years old, as a grandfather of one, a father of 10, and removed from the NFL as a player for 5 years, and a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame, is now officially a practice squad player with the Indianapolis Colts, where he played 1 year, and he has a relationship with Shane Steichen, who was with him in LA/San Diego, really, with the Chargers. They have a personal relationship. They talk constantly. J.J. Watt put out there in the production meetings for CBS for the game this week with the Texans and the Seahawks that he learned that basically Phillip Rivers runs the Colts offense for the middle school or high school team that he coaches. So he's familiar with the offense. I don't know if that's technically familiar with the offense, but it is. Guys, before we get into the sound and all the conversations, etc., now that it's official, your thoughts on a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers potentially starting this week for the Indianapolis Colts?
Yeah, I can't remember a time where a player that was a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame was actually getting ready to play in an NFL game. The reason why they make you wait 5 years after your last game is so situations like this don't come up. But I couldn't help but go to the place when I heard the news of this potentially being a billboard for Phillip Rivers' Hall of Fame case. If he steps in and somehow miraculously gets the Indianapolis Colts to the playoffs, does that bolster his argument to get into the Hall of Fame? Because he is the definition of a fringe Hall of Famer. When you look at the numbers, when you look at the postseason success or lack thereof, there are a lot of question marks about the greatness of Phillip Rivers. If he can step in with his organization off the couch and save the day in what is the most bizarre of circumstances, then I absolutely think this does something to move the needle in terms of making sure that he can get in the Canton.
Could it go the other way?
No. At 44 years old, no. No, because there are so few players that have started an NFL game at age 44 or later. I know everybody has got Tom Brady on the top of the brain because it's one of the most recent examples. Tom Brady, Vinny Testaverde, Warren Moon, and Steve DeBerg. Mm-hmm. Those are the handful of quarterbacks that have started a game age 44 or older. Tom Brady started 37 games at age 44 or older. The next person on that list, Vinny Testaverde, he started 3 games at age 44 or older. Warren Moon and Steve DeBerg both had 1. So it's so rare. So if he steps in and doesn't play well, I don't think that it makes his Hall of Fame case take a hit. This is all upside for Phillip Rivers. If he steps in and he balls, which is the most unlikely of all of the possible scenarios in terms of how it plays out, but if he does, then I do think it does something for his Hall of Fame case in a positive way for him.
Well, that Colts team that he was with in 2020 was pretty impressive. They finished 11-5. They won 4 of their last 5 games to clinch a playoff spot. No Colts team since that 2020 team that Phillip Rivers was obviously under center for averaged more passing yards, 253.3 per game with Rivers in control of that offense. But again, that was 5 years ago. That was 2020.
That was tough, though. He did that in the COVID season. So
that was 5 years ago.
That is some tough circumstances to pull that off.
Sure, but how different is your body 5 years from now?
That's the thing that I think we have to zero in on. Can this guy actually go out there and survive an NFL game? Right, he's going to be going up against potentially the Seattle Seahawks this week. We'll have to see what happens with Riley Leonard. But there's a situation where he shows up today to practice with the team, and he's forced to start on Sunday in one of the toughest environments in the entire NFL. It'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to the speed of play, because there's always a curve when it comes to that. even for veteran players that have been doing this a really long time that are still in it. When you go through training camp, practices, playing in preseason games is a different speed. Playing in regular season games is a different speed. Regular season games in December and January ticks up in terms of intensity, physicality, overall speed. And then, of course, the playoffs is a different gear. So can Phillip Rivers step in without having a whole lot of prep time, without having a chance to allow his body to get acclimated to football movements, without being used to getting hit, without the rigors of the wear and tear of, going through an NFL season week to week? Can he step in and deal with all of that from a physical standpoint? That's the thing that I'm going to be interested to see.
I want to go back to one thing. Are you saying, CC, that if Phillip Rivers was a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, he would not be coming back right now?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, if he's trying to help his case to be a Hall of Famer, if that's a residual effect of
Listen, if Eli Manning didn't get in first ballot, Phillip Rivers ain't getting in first ballot. They're the same draft class.
Oh, and I don't think he should get in at all because I don't think he was ever like a top 3-4 quarterback in the league at any point and never won an MVP and never won a Super Bowl.
I hear what you're saying. And the resume in terms of the top line is a little thin.
Yeah.
But as somebody that can play it against him, I can tell you, Phillip Rivers was a dog. Like he was one of the best of the era. I played against him in college. I was at Virginia. He was at NC State. He was awesome stepping in as a true freshman and balling. I played against him in the NFL for over a decade. Guy was awesome. Like the Chargers thought enough of him to move on from Drew Brees. That's how good Phillip Rivers was as a talent. So him being in the conversation for the Hall of Fame, him potentially getting in the can, I'm not going to say that he doesn't deserve a spot in football heaven. What I will say is there are a lot of people that feel the same way that you do.
Yeah.
And I think that this can change a lot of those opinions if he's able to come off the couch and save the day. Similar to what we saw with Joe Flacco with the Cleveland Browns a couple of years ago. But Joe Flacco had stayed in the NFL.
Right.
This is a little bit different because he's so far removed from playing.
Okay, so you just brought up the positives, right? The positives would be, and just for information purposes and factual purposes, so if he stays in the practice squad and never actually goes to the active roster, his Hall of Fame candidacy does not change. If he goes to the active roster, even if he doesn't play a single snap, he then has to wait another 5 years because he's technically in the NFL again as an active player. Now, that said, that's the positive. He plays well, they get into the playoffs, he makes people like me think he shouldn't get into, well, you know what? This is pretty impressive in addition to that, right? The flip side. What if this goes the way that you would think a 44-year-old quarterback coming off the couch 5 years later goes? What does that mean for their head coach?
Everybody getting fired.
And Chris Ballard, the general manager.
Everybody getting fired. But here's the thing.
So is it worth it then?
Well, yeah, it's worth it because him and Shane Steichen are boys. Think about it. If you're in a tight spot and your boy has a skill set that very few people walking the planet Earth have,